Welcome to Mobile on Air, a series of weekly webinars where Google experts will share the latest research, case studies, and best practices on how to build a holistic strategy across mobile web and app. My name is Anna. I am a mobile user experience specialist at Google, and I'm going to take you through our webinars program. So every Tuesday, starting from the 5th of May, there will be a live webinar at 2 p.m. the UK time. Every week, we will discuss a new topic on mobile, starting from best practices in uncertain times, and then covering how to build great experiences across web and app platforms, and finishing up with how modern web technologies can help bridge the gap between the two. Each live stream will consist of roughly 40 minutes of presentations and content and 20 minutes of live Q&A with Google experts on web, apps, PWA, design, and performance. So be sure you dial in at 2 p.m. the UK time, listen to speakers, and ask your questions. We will be also sharing feedback forms after every live streams. Please let us know what you think. You can also use a Mobile on Air hashtag, so be sure you share your learnings with us on the social media. Our webinars are open to everyone: marketeers, agencies, UX practitioners, designers, developers, so basically everyone who is looking to perform better in mobile. Now, we've got a lot of great content for you today, but first we wanted to acknowledge that we realize that for many of you, these days are not business as usual. All of us continue to adapt to the coronavirus outbreak across the globe, and we understand that today's landscape is creating new challenges for you, your businesses, and your customers. And while the challenges of each of the businesses are unique, we're all being impacted in some way. We wanted to let you know that we are here for you, and you can find more information on how Google is trying to help by visiting our company blog at blog.google. Also, many of you have reached out to let us know that this type of training comes at a crucial time, a time when you are striving to be helpful and relevant to your customers. And with this in mind, we will continue to work hard to provide you with the content and insights you need to help your businesses and your customers in the future. Now, that's it from me. I want to thank you and say I'm really looking forward to these exciting weeks with you. I'm now going to hand it over to our first speaker. Please prepare your questions for the end of the presentation.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the webinar Mobile on Air. My name is Katja, and I am Mobile UX and Conversion Specialist in Google. I have been in Google for the past 4 years, and before that I lived and worked in Berlin, where I was doing graphic design and social media for various startups. Today I will be presenting to you the design principles for communication in uncertain times. I will then pass it over to my colleague Philip, who will be presenting to you the performance principles also in uncertain times. This content came together within the past 2 months. However, a lot of it also is years of experience of our mobile specialist team. I will be presenting now for about 18 minutes, and afterwards Philip will take the next 15. And in the end, we will have live Q&A. So please do submit your questions in the chat, and we will do our best to answer those. Designing for disruption. This project was started about 2 months ago, when several travel and retail clients reached out to us for support. So we knew that they need us more than ever. We work really hard to research, analyze, and brainstorm with our team to put this content together. This is a new challenge for all of us. However, what I'm going to be presenting to you today is visual, aspirational examples of travel and retail, but they can be applied to any industry and also in any crisis time. So why do we do this? Why do we need to communicate with our users during the crisis times? It is important to stay active and proactive with our users during uncertain times because we cannot leave them hanging in the air. we need to make sure that we are here for them. We need to ease out their uncertainties, and we need to make sure we are answering their questions instead of building more questions for them. And also, we got used to finding all the answers on the internet these days. So make sure that you're using all your digital powers to use all the digital channels available to you to communicate to your users. Some key things to consider when we're talking about communication with our users during the uncertain times. First of all, we need to have a plan in place. But because things change from day to day, and the situation that we saw about a month ago is quite different from what we see now, the plan needs to be quite flexible, so we can adapt to the changes. Try to remember to keep your website alive if it's possible, and avoid the dead ends for your users. In any user journey, we need to provide a solution for our users. And I will show you an example in a few slides. Remember that communication is key, and we need to stay empathetic and understanding at all times. We need to find the right balance for our audience. We cannot be either too cold or overly emotional. It just needs to be the right tone for your audience. Make sure that you utilize all channels that are available to you, and not only your website. Also ask your users, how can you help them? And collect feedback in real time. Make sure that the help that you're providing is actually helpful. Now I will walk you through 3 design principles. First one is color. During the communication, we need to remember to use the calm colors like green or blue, and leave the red for error messages or CTAs, if this is your branding color. But it needs to be a visible message. It needs to have a high contrast between the text and the background, so it is noticeable. Tone. Remember to choose the words wisely, because this is how you set up the tone. Remember to be positive, calm, and also if you do refer to any resources, make sure that they are credible. Your message needs to be informative. It needs to be positive, and it needs to be accessible. It needs to be informative. It needs to be answering the concerns of your users. Information banner. Information banner is a layover that we see on a homepage or landing page. We use information banners for communicating some key business changes. In the example on the screen, you can see a yellow banner. This is the color that we are all familiar with. It is specific to a certain situation. So you may want to pick that color just for fast recognition for users. But it's also absolutely fine if you're using your branding colors. Just like I mentioned before, make sure there is a high contrast between the background and the text. And talking about text, make sure it's readable and accessible for all users. We, as Google, recommend not going below 12 pixels. I usually also say that depending on the font type, go with 14, just to be on the safe side. If you have several points to communicate, make sure that you create for the scanning eye, which means try to use bullet points. And you may also want to consider using icons, because the visual content always helps with perception. 2 more important things about the banner. First one, make sure it's closable. Second, make sure you link your banner to more information. Either provide a hyperlink or a CTA. Communication style. As I mentioned briefly, we need to be empathetic, but we also need to be considerate, transparent, and helpful. And what that means is that if we are providing a message, we need to be very clear about what we're trying to say. Are we actually answering the user's question? So the example on the right-hand side, on the left-hand side, we can see that the physical store is talking about the extended working hours. And we are also explaining why we're doing this. We say that we are hoping that our clients will queue less. This way, we are being transparent and we are being helpful. This is the very important time when we need to build a stronger community. We need to stay connected with our users. If your website is not operating, if your business processes are paused for the moment, try to communicate about your community initiatives. Remember to use the language that is understandable to your audience. What we've seen within the past 2 months, a lot of companies using hashtags. Things like far apart but still together, far apart but coming back together even stronger. These are all great ideas. And another great idea is providing your links to the social media. This way you can stay connected to your audience through other platforms. Creativity, part of your brand. Try to use hero campaigns or categories to express care. You see 2 examples on the slide where we are using the hero campaign to communicate about the items that we think will be useful for our users while they're staying at home. Try to delight your users with small things. It's not the right time to aggressively promote a certain item. However, it's very important to try and show the care, consideration, and that you're thinking about your users. So in these examples, we are offering some electronics, desk, and a chair that we think might be useful. You may also want to show some categories that could delight your users. For example, products to relax after work. Don't forget to use your value proposition. You can try and say that you are not operating offline now, but you are still operating online. Allow your users to stay connected and shop with you at all times. If you travel, you may want to say that users can book with you now, but perhaps they can change the flight date later. Show them that you are flexible. Show that you are considerate. And if you do donations, this is great. Try to speak about it out loud. Don't be shy about it. Say to your users that you are donating, how much you are donating, and for whom you are donating, and link it to the organization. For social proof reasons, you may want to also expose the amount of money that was already donated. This should encourage more users to shop with you and feel good about it. For some big changes, we need to think of bigger solutions. If your resources allow, try to think how you can strengthen your business systems and how you can ease it out for your users, how to make the shopping experience more effective. On the slide, you see that we are offering an online queue. This way, we are managing the customer flow. We are explaining how it works, and we have the visual representation of the progress bar. So we are telling our users that they will have to queue for about 18 minutes. We also tell them not to close the window. But so that they don't wander away, we allow them to browse the content. And when the time comes to purchase, we also notify them. We allow them to either proceed to the cart or keep shopping with us. Another example here, and another way how to manage your traffic. You may want to consider using a slot system. This is another complex system to build, so it needs to be self-explanatory. You need to make sure that it's intuitive and that it does not require too much action from your users. Also, always keep in mind the accessibility. Make sure it's easy to tap. Keep in mind all your users. Now let's talk about limited stock. Limited stock is something that is great to reflect in real time. If it's technically possible, tell your users that only a few items left. For this, you can either consider using a fast sorting tag in stock. This way users can sort out the items and view only those that are currently available. Or they can also see some labels that say either a few items left or the items completely sold out. And what we need to avoid is clicking on the item and progressing to the PDP and finding out only then that the item is not available. Notifications. So if you are being shared a link to a PDP, but by the time you open it, the item is gone, the good user experience would be to allow users to sign up for personalized notifications for the time when the item becomes available again. For travel, you may want to offer some notifications for a specific route, for flight cancellation, policy changes, or perhaps travel ban. We need to remember to keep our users updated about what it matters the most and when it matters the most. Newsletter. And it goes without saying that we always need to explain why to sign up for the newsletter, what the user will get from the newsletter. So remember that in uncertain times, this is a great way to keep your users updated about your business operations. So make sure to mention that. FAQ and Help Center articles. This is probably one of the most important parts of your website during the communication. So the banner should be linked to more information, like I mentioned in the beginning. So when we're proceeding to more information, this is either an updated FAQ page or this is a completely new build Help Center article. Whichever way you're going, make sure that it's easy to find this information and it's also easy to navigate. So let's have a look how we can do that. The two examples you see on the screen right now, having slightly two different UIs. The first one on the left with yellow information buckets offer you to proceed to a certain information category, say travel ban. The example in the middle uses progressive disclosure, which means we're seeing headers, and by tapping those, we see the subcategories. And then when we tap those, we proceed to more information. And if you remember, in the very beginning, I told you to collect feedback in real time. So this is how you can do it. If you're providing new piece of article, try to ask a simple question to the user. Was this article helpful? Yes or no? This way, you can improve the article that you just created and optimize it if it needed. We will be providing to you the links to both playbooks, travel and retail. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Philip Kriegel. I've been working at Google for the last 2.5 years as a mobile specialist engineer, focused on helping customers make their sites faster in order to improve their user experience. I do that by recommending web development best practices and by helping clients adopt the latest and greatest web technology. More recently, I've been doing so from the comfort of my own home, which is where I presume most of you are tuning in from. I've slowly but surely learned how to cook, which has enabled me to binge food and TV at the same time. As I've relied more and more on online experiences for entertainment, fitness, education, and recipes, I've become much more appreciative of the sites and experiences that work effortlessly in times when I know that they're serving more users than ever. On the flip side, I've become much more aware of experiences that do not pass that bar. Today, I'm going to speak to you about the impact that recent events have had on internet usage and bandwidth. Then, we'll discuss the optimizations that you can make to ensure that you are always able to serve your users, both during uncertain times and anytime. First, we'll take a look at the objective impact that stay-at-home has had on internet usage around the world. It's been no surprise that ever since countries began to implement stay-at-home orders, internet usage has gone up substantially. Whether for entertainment, social connection with loved ones, or work, the internet enables many to keep busy in uncertain times. The number of daily internet users and the amount of time they spend on the internet has likely never been higher worldwide over such a sustained period of time. Under these conditions, it's important to be aware of the impact that this can have on internet bandwidth. Fastly, a CDN provider, reported on their blog that in Italy, during the period between February 18th and March 31st, traffic to their servers spiked by over 109%, and download speeds dropped by 35%. Maybe you've noticed it, maybe you haven't, but it is happening. The internet is slower now than it was in January. However, the internet continues to serve people, and even though the experience may not be as fast or as optimal for some, actual loss of internet connectivity doesn't appear to be a pressing problem. So, why does this matter? It's not your fault. There's nothing you can do about it, right? Well, not exactly. Certain sites, in particular some large social media networks and streaming services, still have fast, performant experiences, even on a slow connection. Even if you aren't competing directly against them, users won't reserve judgment for your load time based on your business model. When things don't work, the frustration a user might feel is more likely to be directed at what they're trying to load, even if it isn't actually your fault. During the early days of the pandemic, companies sought to reassure their users of the reliability of their product and services. Given the degradation of internet speeds around the world, it's also important to extend this reliability to your site. So, in order to prevent your site from compounding on this issue, let's take a look at some optimizations that should be relatively quick for you to implement on your site. First up is CDN optimization. Many sites, including most likely yours, utilize a CDN to serve some proportion of their assets. Whether being used for images or for the entire site, check your CDN provider, such as Google Cloud CDN, AWS, Akamai, or Cloudflare, for toggleable optimizations. Automatic minification, compression, and image resizing can all play a role in reducing your site's footprint, resulting in a faster experience for users. Images can also be reduced, cropped, or compressed on the fly versus having to be managed on your web server, which also saves time making and adjusting creatives. As a disclaimer, these sorts of changes aren't going to take a site from being slow to suddenly fast, but in concert with other optimizations, it certainly has an impact, while being very easy to switch on and try out. Next, let's take a look at caching. No matter how fast a user's connection is, nothing is faster than a phone's cache. If you intelligently store content on the user's cache, you can limit the number of requests that you're making when they return to your site. Effective use of e-tags and cache control headers will reduce the number and size of requests even further. Caching logos and the shell of your site are all recommended strategies. This will make your site significantly faster when users come back to your site. While caching can get you a lot of savings, you still have to download the initial resources. Everything you download to a page has a cost, both in terms of bandwidth and render time. With compression, you can reduce that cost substantially. Text in particular can really add up, since it might make up the majority of your resources, if not the majority of your page weight. All of the JavaScript, HTML, and CSS that you download is text after all. Compressing and minifying a single text file might not result in huge savings on its own, but over dozens or even hundreds of requests, it can certainly have an impact. There really isn't a reason not to compress your text files. Images are a little more tricky. Different formats and sizes make the most sense in different situations. PNGs make the most sense for your icons, while JPEGs are best for complex image, such as this cute red panda. JPEG quality reductions frequently result in a higher reduction in size. As you can see here, a 75% reduction in image quality corresponded to a 90% decrease in size. While it might be a bit hard to see over video, I promise that the difference between these two images is nearly imperceptible on a mobile phone. As my roommates are sure to tell you, it's a lot easier to make a mess than it is to clean it up. This is especially true of dishes, but also CSS, JavaScript, and tag managers. Generally, when a new feature or style or tag needs to get added, it gets added with little thought given to what might need to be taken out. As a result, over time, files get bloated and tag managers get filled with tags sending information to no one. However, this unused code still gets downloaded and parsed, taking up valuable cycles. Take this time as an opportunity to clean up your house, remove deprecated code, audit your tag manager, tree shake your CSS, and in general, tidy up. The coverage tool in Chrome is especially useful at showing you what code is actually being used on any given page load. Next, let's take a look at font optimization. Avoiding font issues is critical. The dreaded flash of unstyled or invisible text not only serves as a delay for the user being able to read your text, but also, to be frank, it's super janky. It just doesn't look or feel good. Luckily, there are two good ways to avoid this. On most modern browsers, such as Chrome, the CSS font display property supports the swap and optional attributes. Swap will show an appropriate system font on the user's device, and then swap in the font once it gets loaded. Optional abandons the custom font if it doesn't load in time. The same behavior can be emulated in older browsers, using the Font Face Observer JavaScript library. Overall, while fonts are important for your branding, it's important to realize that users should be able to see the text content on a page as quickly as possible. Consider using system fonts for important parts of your page, such as alerts or banners. Finally, let's discuss A/B testing. A/B testing tools often use a DOM hiding flicker snippet to conduct tests on the client side. This is done to keep the page hidden while elements are swapped in the background. Consider disabling this because it can impact render time. In addition, anytime that you're not running tests, disabling your test framework can also improve render times, making sites more predictable to users and freeing up experimentation resources. When running A/B tests, always consider the C test, which is simply not loading the A/B testing library whatsoever and seeing what sort of an impact that has. While more complex, if possible, render A/B tests on the server side to avoid hiding already loaded page content from users. Everything that we just covered are changes and adaptations that should be relatively simple for you to start working with. Each individual change isn't a world changer, but everything does add up and can have a meaningful impact on performance. Next, we're going to take a look at some stretch goals that might be worth undertaking during this time. The following optimizations will take more time to implement, but I can assure you that they're worth it and go a long way towards helping you facilitate user intent. The first thing I'd like to discuss is an offline mode. With the current state of web technology, you don't even need a connection in order to render something for your users in the browser. If a returning user loses their connection, your site can still provide them with important information using an offline mode powered by a service worker. Updated hours, phone numbers, and other relevant details can be cached and presented to a user at any time and under any network conditions. Oftentimes, phone service is still available when mobile internet isn't. So providing a phone number means that being offline isn't going to stop a potential conversion or a call to customer support. Offline modes make an immediate positive impression and simply serve as a practical utility. For users who don't realize that they're offline, it's a reminder. For users who can't get online, it shows incredible availability and service on your part. Next, let's quickly talk about lazy loading. When we load any page, we want to prioritize the above the fold content. Obviously, what's above the fold is what should be immediately relevant to users arriving at the page. Slowing down the experience and using up resources in order to load content and image below the fold is clearly not a good user experience. Ultimately, as with an offline mode, what we want to do is to facilitate the user's intent. If they scroll down, we can start loading images and content appropriately. If they arrive at your site with the intent to log in, click on the hero image, or use the search bar at the top of the page, we don't want to waste their time by loading things below the fold. As an aside, you should also take a look at your homepage or landing pages and maybe measure their height, perhaps in phone screens and then maybe even in feet. There are certain pages that I've worked with that I lovingly refer to as skyscrapers, pages that require quite literally 5 to 6 feet of scrolling for you to read their entire contents. If we're trying to prioritize the prime real estate at the top of the page, we don't want to jeopardize that with information that nobody's going to read 5 feet down the page. Continuing with the theme of facilitating user intent, we arrive at navigation prefetch. This is an extremely useful technique that greases the wheels, so to speak, of your website. In most modern browsers, there is a prefetch cache that you can utilize to store assets, including HTML, in case a user accesses it. If enabled, once the browser has loaded a page and is idle, it'll start to gather resources for pages that a user might navigate to next, using the links on that page. So while a user browses or reads, you're preparing the next navigation to be as quick as possible, since it's already downloaded. You can either decorate resources yourself with the prefetch hint, or use libraries such as QuickLink and Guest.js. QuickLink prefetches links that are visible in the user's window, whereas Guest.js takes it a step further and uses analytics data that you provide in order to make predictions on what users are most likely to click on next. Ultimately, you are enabling smoother navigation for your users and facilitating their intent as effectively as possible. To conclude, let's take a look at the initial set of optimizations that I covered. All of these are things that you should be doing already, but now is as good a time to start as any. These optimizations should be quick to implement, and will have an immediate impact on your site's reliability and speed. Advanced optimizations will require more effort, but will pay dividends now and into the future, as users reward you for facilitating their intent and making your site fast and available under any network condition. There's way more information on all this and more at web.dev/COVID-19 and on web.dev in general that should help you make fast, compelling experiences for your user. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Hello again, and I think we're now good to start our live Q&A session, which is going to be happening after every live stream. So once again, my name is Anna. I am joining today from my home in Dublin, and I know it does look like it's the middle of the night here, but it's just a really thick curtain behind me, and it's actually really nice and sunny outside, which I'm really looking forward to. So I will be a moderator today, and as you guys can see, we have 4 experts joining us today to answer your burning performance and design questions on designing during disruption. So I guess everybody can recognize Katya and Philip. Thank you guys so much for your amazing presentations. Would you mind maybe saying hello once again so that the audience can see you and hear you once again, and maybe tell us where you are right now? Let's start from Katya.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Katya, and I am in Dublin, and it is very sunny.
Thanks, Katya. Now, hello, Philip. I believe you're joining us from California, which is probably also sunny right now, or not yet.
Yes, hi everybody, this is Philip. I am reporting out of California, and the sun is just coming up, and it looks like we're going to have yet another sunny day here in San Francisco.
It sounds amazing. Yeah, and now I would like to introduce 2 more guests whom we were really lucky to get today as experts. So the first one is Louise. Louise is our UX and CRO expert. She's also based in Dublin. Louise, would you mind saying hello and maybe a couple of more things about your background and things you will be covering today?
Sure, thanks, Anna. So as Anna said, my name's Louise. I'm part of the mobile UX team based in Dublin. So I work with Katya and Anna on a daily basis. My background is in CRO, analytics, UX. So I'll be trying to answer some of your questions today from those areas. I can see a few of them already coming in. So yeah, any of those questions, please do submit them, and we're looking forward to answer them for you.
Thanks a lot, Louise. And now the last but not least, Rupert. Rupert is dialing in from Zurich and is expert in so many things. And today he will be covering on performance and optimization questions. Hello, Rupert.
Hi, yes, it's a very overcast Switzerland, I'm afraid. And as you mentioned, I'm a technical specialist for the mobile web. And prior to this, I was a webmaster embedded in a Google marketing team.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rupert. We're really lucky to have all of you guys today, and I'm really looking forward to this Q&A session. Please, everyone who is dialing in today to listen to our presentations and live Q&A, please submit your questions. You can do this right below the video. So right now we're going to kick it off, and the way it's going to work is that we will try to prioritize the live questions that you guys are posting right below the video. But we saw a very few good requests, few good questions coming in through the registration form, right? When you were asked to register for the Mobile on Air, there was a question, what would you like to hear? And we will probably, just as a warm-up, start from few of those, because few of them were directly related to the uncertain times. And we thought it's going to be good to cover them in any case. So the first one is directed to Louise. So Louise, tell us as a UX and CRO expert. So all these best practices that we've heard today from Katya, they are based on our, UX experience, research, and feedback from the industry that we kept here during the past months. So in your experience, have you seen a change in user behavior since the crisis started? And has this impacted maybe the user purchasing behavior in particular in any way?
Yes, it's a really good question. First, I'd say it kind of depends on the vertical. So a lot of different verticals are being impacted in slightly different ways. But to answer the question in short, yes, there has been a big change in user behavior, mainly around research is kind of what we would call it. And what I mean by that is prior to a user now going and making a purchase on a site, they're now doing research to see, one, is this site up and running? If they are, what's their delivery like? Do they have the volume of products, that we're used to? Do they have what I might want? Refunds, returns. So what's happening is users are going onto a site first and they're doing the research to try and find the answers to these questions. And then if they're satisfied, they're then going ahead and purchasing them. And this is new. Obviously, a user would normally just go onto a site, especially if they're familiar with it, and they'd go and make their purchase in happy days. So it's definitely a new behavior that we're seeing. Additionally to that, we're starting to see more people being more conscious of where they're buying from. So for example, supporting local or supporting smaller, single businesses. So what's happening is even myself, I've started to, get my groceries from like local suppliers instead of going to bigger supermarkets. So what we're seeing is people are being an awful lot more conscious of where they're spending their money, and they all want to make sure, or a lot of them want to make sure that they're actually supporting their local communities or smaller businesses that might not be within their community. So people are being more conscious around kind of where they're spending. They're the two biggest changes that we've seen, kind of research, communication, and kind of conscious buying.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Louise. And I guess just to wrap this up, I guess this is a really great time for companies starting doing more research and listening more to users, what exactly they're saying and what they are expecting from us, because we're all living now in the new reality, and you need to understand the new user and design for them, right, in this context. So we're receiving a lot of just comments from many different listeners that maybe there is a little bit of a confusion if we are live or not. We just wanted to reassure that we are live. We are taking your questions that you're posting under the video. And let's actually get it started with one performance-related question that was submitted by Michael. So in a larger company, we get measured by Lighthouse or Google PageSpeed results. These usually do not take caching into the account for the current or following page views. Do you have any advice on how to communicate or explain that both values are just for the front side of a client? Okay, Philip, I think this one is directed more to you, to your front, or Rupert, if you have anything to add on this on top, you can feel free to chime in.
Sure thing. So yeah, this is a great question, and Lighthouse and PageSpeed Insights are great tools, but as you pointed out, it's not necessarily going to show you how well the page performs after it's been cached, or for example, after a user returns to the page, right? Which is another important consideration. You should view Lighthouse and PageSpeed Insights as ways to essentially measure how the page is going to load to a new user, but then you can use other tools such as Web Page Test or even the Chrome UX report to get a better perspective of how all of your pages are loading, even when users are coming back or after a repeat load. So for example, in Web Page Test, right, you can load the initial page and then have the test load the page again after everything has been cached. With the Chrome UX report, you're measuring the metrics of everybody who visits any page on your domain. So that's also going to include first-time users as well as returning users. The reason that there's more of a focus on that initial load is simply because that's where we get the most performance bottlenecks, because you're bringing the most stuff over the wire, right? All of your JavaScript, all of your CSS. Whereas when a user returns, right, you can really have a lot of that stuff cached on the page, which is definitely very important. But even the slowest sites, right, sites that take a very long time to load, can be very fast on that subsequent load. So it's important to have a balance when communicating, how the site is performing for real users and collecting real user metrics, such as Chrome UX report, to get an idea of what they're actually experiencing.
Thanks a lot, Philip. Rupert?
Yeah, just to add, exactly to your point, Philip, there's a distinction between what we call synthetic measurements, which you get from tools like PageSpeed Insight and Lighthouse, and the real world, which is going to differ. Lighthouse is a generic score across a chosen device. We can emulate various connection speeds, but different types of site are going to have different users with access to different hardware, and so it's a more realistic example of what people are going to be experiencing your site as. But what I would say is Lighthouse is great guidelines. It gives you a kind of key metric that you can measure your own progress against yourself. And so if you have to go up against stakeholders and justify the amount of days work that have to go in to potentially fix a performance issue, you can clearly point to that metric, and an increased Lighthouse score is always going to be a good result for your real world users as well. So there's always a knock-on effect, but I think it helps you sell internally if you need to get resources applied to the performance part of the equation.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks to our technical experts. There is one really good question on just the webinars in general, and I think I'll also better clarify this in the very beginning. So are you going to provide a PDF presentation? We will after every live stream, but as I also mentioned in the very beginning, we will be sharing feedback forms with you, so please let us know what you think after the live stream. It's very important for us. We're going to read everything that you submit, and you will be able to download a PDF of every presentation after you fill out the feedback form. Okay. Yeah, so another one that had multiple likes, and it's also UX related. So maybe, Louise, you could have a look into that one. So William is asking, how do you track that your UX changes had a positive impact rather than a negative one, especially in the current situation? Yeah, this is a really good question.
Yeah, I love these questions. So measurement is really, really important when it comes to UX because it's actually quite difficult to do. Even though the current situation is obviously a bit different and it's not something that we're used to, and we're working with different teams and smaller resources and so on, you should still be measuring as you were before. So having the likes of a measurement plan in place is still just as important as previously. So looking at what your core KPIs goals are, and making sure that you have them mapped out for your key journeys on your site. I would, as a business, I would look at what your previous kind of KPIs and measurement strategies were, and then maybe look at adjusting them for the current circumstances that we're in, and making sure that it's relevant and it's capturing like a good journey given these new circumstances. What I mean by that is that if a journey is maybe a little bit longer or a bit shorter, or the user has to go through something slightly different than they did previously, map that out, and that's your new journey, and like take hold of that new journey. And we don't know how long this is going to go on for, so it's really important that you have KPIs set against that. What I think you might be alluding to a little bit with this question is A/B testing. It's really difficult at the moment to do A/B testing and to actually get clear results, given a lot of sites, especially in the travel sector, don't have as much traffic on them as normal. So what I would say is, we're always in Google saying it's really important to do both qualitative and quantitative research together, as part of that overall CRO approach. What I would do is I would shift now more towards the likes of user testing. If you're trying to quantify changes that you're making at the moment, given the current circumstances, what I would do is I do something with user testing, like testing 10 users on the current journey and measure that journey. So put KPIs to it and then measure how those KPIs come out with the 10 users testing it. And then with your new journey, or your new, whatever it could be that's updated, do another 10 tests with 10 different users with the same KPIs, and see if you can measure a slight improvement in the overall experience. Perception is really important, so perceived time, perceived ease, and so on. It's really important to try and get numbers down on those types of of KPIs for your users. So what I would say is you should still keep measuring. You should still have a measurement plan in place. You should still have your KPIs in place. I would just adapt slightly and kind of move more into the qualitative side a little bit more for the moment, and look to use that as a way to quantify your work. It's still really important to do it. We're doing it ourselves in Google. It's, you know, we've all had to adapt slightly because we're not getting the volumes that we would have liked previously to be able to get quicker results. So yeah, what I would do is I would shift towards doing more user testing and benchmark your current site against your new designs or your proposed new designs. It's also a really good kind of fail-safe way of avoiding putting something on the site that could have a negative impact.
Thank you, Louise, for such a great and comprehensive answer. This is a really important topic, especially in the UX design, when you need to understand the real impact of your changes and things that you're implementing one by one. And, you know, when normally we usually look into A/B testing a lot. In the times when your traffic fluctuates, it might be really, really challenging. Thank you so much for this. Right, so one of the first questions that was submitted by Elisa, we are nervous about going overboard with COVID messaging. So what is the minimum amount of content that you would recommend? Anybody from UX speakers could cover that? Maybe Louise, is that you as well?
Yeah, I can take that one if you want. So what is it? What is the minimum amount of COVID content that should be on a site?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Again, if I knew the exact vertical, it'd be a little bit easier to answer. But what I would say is that what we're advising clients to do at the moment is make sure that you have, and Katia touched on it in her presentation, make sure that you have some sort of banner or very clear, distinctive content on your homepage directing users to a dedicated disruption page. I think that's kind of the best approach. We have seen some homepages that are almost dedicated COVID pages. We kind of avoid that where possible. We're actually doing an awful lot of research ourselves at the moment to better understand the change in users' purchasing behavior. And one thing that we have noticed is that a lot of users are saying we're fed up of having, you know, when you land on a site, it's just purely COVID, COVID, COVID. And what they want is just the normal content, the normal branding. And they want that there, and they just want something that's kind of simple to redirect them off to get that COVID specific information. So what I would say is having a really small banner that is simple and clear and to the point is probably best practice. And I would avoid kind of having it all over your site and on every page where possible. You know, unless, for example, in the product details page, you need to put in a bit more content there around maybe delivery or slower, I don't know, whatever the impact might be. But yeah, where possible, I'd actually avoid putting too much content there and just have a very simple banner that redirects the user away to a dedicated page that has all of the content that they need there, and it's properly kind of categorized and organized so they can nice and quickly go through to find the information that is relevant to them. I would say through the user research that we're doing, don't not say anything. There is a perception if a user lands on a site, if there's no relation at all, that the site actually isn't up and running. So what I would say is at a bare minimum, do make sure that you do have that banner there, because if a user comes onto a site and they see nothing, and their initial reaction is, are these guys even up and running? So do make sure that you have something. But I would keep it very simple within a small banner and just redirecting the users away to a relevant page.
Yeah, thanks so much, Louise. Right, so the next question comes from Roland, and it's a really big question. So thank you for the webinar. Thank you, Roland. We are converting our CSS from using descendant selectors into the BEM methodology in the hopes of further reducing our page rendering and paint time, since pretty much all of the recommended optimizations have already been carried out. Is it possible to accurately measure the impact of this process? I've been fiddling around with the Chrome Dev Tools Performance tab, but couldn't get accurate results. Thanks. Like performance guys, maybe Rupert, do you have any thoughts on this?
Sure. So as an erstwhile CSS junkie, I spent an awful lot of my time, I think, designing more style sheets and rules for that than we did specifically HTML, anything like that. And so we got heavily into it. And from what we understood of the performance issues, we tried various approaches. browsers support CSS selectors. It's very optimized already. I think honestly, this could be a bit of a rabbit hole you could descend down into, and I'm not honestly sure it would be worth your development time on this. Maybe one of the optimizations you could do is something along the lines of media queries dropped into your link tags. So it's like a really simple thing that has a larger effect is instead of having media queries within one giant file, you can split different sets of responsive layouts for your specific devices and then only load them on the devices rather than having one massive sort of monolithic block. So I'm tempted to think you will always find another optimization elsewhere. I would say that it's just not worth the effort, and there may be some more squeezing you could do on your images, or the JavaScript is always going to have the single biggest impact on your website. So I absolutely applaud your enthusiasm performance, but I don't know that you're going to make the gains from changing the way the selectors are applied specifically for CSS.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rupert. Great. So I think we have time for a couple of more questions. So yeah, I saw there was a question from Dublin Diaries. How do we improve the startup business ads in the current scenario? So like, guys, this series of live streams is not related to ads. We're talking about mobile products that companies have, is it websites or apps? But you can check the Think with Google website that has a lot of tips for advertisers. And then also on the event page of the Mobile on Air, right, there is a tab with different links to live streams, and then there is a separate tab with the Think with Google resources that you can use, and a lot of them are related to the disruption times, and few of them are just related to mobile in general. Okay, so you can check that out. And also for any resources that our speakers are going to mention in the live Q&A, we can also add those to the live website, so you will be able to find all the resources that you that we're mentioning in our presentations later on the website. Great. So maybe one of the last ones was submitted during the registration form, and it probably comes from the retail industry. And maybe Katya, that would be something for you to, I don't know, brainstorm on. So it was, should we display days or weeks when talking about extended delivery times, right? Because at the moment, everybody needs to manage expectations of users about some delays. So what is that? What would you always display on the information banner or in any other place on the website? Is it the days or weeks, or what is the best practice there?
Thank you, Anna. That's a very interesting question. And there is actually a scientific research about the units, the small units like days versus large units, weeks. And the scientific research shows that we as humans perceive the large units as a shorter period of time versus the small units, which is days. So therefore, I would recommend displaying, say, the shipping times. If you promise the shipping times to be done within 14 days, I would recommend to use 2 weeks instead of 14 days, because this is the way you can diminish the perception of the delay for the user. And as for the shipping, if the shipping is being extended or you see delays, I would still communicate this type of update on the information banner at all times. And say, for example, if you don't see any delays, if you're operating as normal, your shippings and deliveries are just the same, I'd still communicate them on the information banner, because this is the way you are setting up expectations very early with your users. And say, for example, I'm the user who's researching an item between 3 different websites. So if I land on your website and you do communicate about the shipping times or delivery extended times clearly on your information banner, you're letting me know straight away. You're setting expectations very early from the very beginning. So if I'm comparing between several sites, you allow me to make the decision faster. So this type of uncertainty allows me to convert faster.
Thanks a lot, Katya. Since we don't have any more live questions? Maybe just the last one that we received through the registration form, because it's also very much related to the UX best practices that we presented today, and it's also really about retail. So are there any best practices around handling out of stock or limited stock messaging, I guess? So Louise, would you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question, because it's definitely something I think we're all experiencing a lot more of at the moment. So we would definitely say that there is some best practices around handling that. So first off, would just be to make sure that the out of stock product is really well and clearly labeled. There's nothing worse for a user if they were to go and add that to the cart and try and get to checkout before they actually realize it's not available. So as early on in the journey as possible, I would label that product as out of stock. Additionally to that, if it was possible, if you were to allow a user to sign up and to be registered when the product is back in stock, that would be another kind of great add-on for that particular scenario. And the reason being is that it can be a little bit frustrating for a user, especially in the current circumstances where they're on a site and a lot of different products that they're looking for are out of stock. So you're giving them here an alternative action to allow them to be notified for when it comes back into stock. And another alternative, which again, when we were doing our user research, kept coming up again and again, was users would like to know when the product would be back in stock. So if you can't maybe alert someone to it being back in stock, maybe you can put a date or a time for when they can expect to see it, so that they know when to come back. And finally, I suppose the third best option would be filters. So if a user's going through a listing page and they're just seeing out of stock item, it's a really frustrating experience for them. So what we would say is actually add a filter to allow them to remove out of stock items, so that they can actually just see what is available to them at that time.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Louise. Right, and I think we are done with all questions. Thanks everyone for your amazing attention and questions and dialing in today in general. So yeah, I just wanted to remind you a few things. So again, we will be sharing feedback forms after this live stream. This was the very first live stream of this series, and now you know how this works, right? And this was a very new and really great experience for us as well. So please provide us with the feedback. We would love to hear what you think, and then you will be able to download the presentations after you do that. You can also find a lot of resources on our Mobile On Air website. And yeah, the next live stream will happen just exactly in a week at 2 p.m. the UK time. And it's going to be about building great experiences across app and web with our colleagues, Jamal and Olga. So thank you so much for dialing in today. I hope to see you next week.